If you accept the handle of African American, that says that you don't accept being an American American.
You add that little African bit to it, so it's like, well, but we don't fully relate to these people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
There was that tension in the past where you weren't really treated as a proper person. So maybe, they just see it as, okay, they didn't respect me as a person, so I won't represent that country as a person of that country.
What's poppin', everybody?
Welcome back to the Cold Popcast.
I'm Zoe.
And I'm Steve.
And today we're going to be talking about black patriotism and whether or not it could be a problem.
So black patriotism, like the idea of a black person being a patriot, is a very nuanced issue. A lot of the time people actually consider people that are black patriots to be
Like
basically hosting internalized racism.
Yeah.
Right? So you're not really allowed to love the country because the country has such a storied history that shows so many issues, especially in relation to black people and other minorities. But Smokey Robinson actually has something different he wants to say about racism. And he actually had an interview with Chris Wallace on CNN where he said how he feels about patriotism and being an American.
Yeah, see what he's got to say.
The idea of being called an African American, that
Yes.
you are a black American.
Yes.
Explain.
I think that when they call black people who were born and raised for generations in this country, if you accept the handle of African American, that says that you don't accept being an American American. You don't accept being born in Chicago or New York or Detroit or wherever you were born. For generations, your family has been here, built this country too. Sweat and tears and all that, fought in every war, okay? So this is my country here. So I don't want to be called African American. I'm an American American. My people died and done everything for this country.
So do we agree with that? Like, basically, his argument is basically that because you are an American, your culture pretty much lies here, and you don't necessarily have too many ties to Africa, that you shouldn't really go by African American. Does that check out?
I think there's a lot of merit to what he's saying. I would agree with it because I've heard the argument before. Like, there's some black people that they kind of reject the moniker of African American simply because it kind of insinuates this this tie or this desired tie back to like your African roots, which I guess is inherently a bad thing. But it's like kind of trying to diminish your role or like your belonging to like actual America,
Yeah,
and I think it's like this like weird like being ashamed to like go all in on America because as a black person sometimes you would feel or at least in the culture it's like this idea that you shouldn't feel like you're like a real American because America doesn't treat black people well.
Right. And it's almost like, even though we do get to benefit from the American system, you add that little African bit to it. So it's like, well, but we don't fully relate to these people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's like, it definitely like is this weird, like wanting to kind of separate ourselves, which I guess it brings to the question, like, is it something that needs to be done anymore at this point? Like, I think like, when he brought the whole thing, like America, like blacks have fought in every world war, like every war. Or every war, but every war is like we are a very interesting minority in America because we're the only ones pretty much that have, well, I guess other than Native Americans, but like we're one of the only ones that have been here for a very long time in terms of like we have multiple generations here. We don't like we're not like just one or two generations removed from our host country. Like we have entire legacies of families and generations that have only known America. So it's like, why do we hesitate to engage in the idea of like strong American patriotism as if we weren't a part of like the making of this experiment?
Right. Well, like we've been here from the start and we helped build the country.
Mm-hmm.
We actually played a very critical role. I would say we more than helped build the country. We played a very critical role in building this country up. So to consider yourself, any form of African doesn't necessarily make sense to me unless you like immigrated from Africa to America. Then I would say you're an African American.
Yeah.
But the only time I'm an African American is when I'm filling out paperwork, pretty much.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Want to check out what
Yeah, so there's actually some quotes from some other people that actually have an opinion on this. NPR actually did an article where they actually interviewed a bunch of different African Americans, I guess is what we're calling them now. So a bunch of different black people from America who had their own opinions on whether or not they should be patriotic. So this is one person. Her name is Farah Jasmine Griffin. She's the she's the chair of African American Studies at Columbia University. She says, you have African Americans who are definitely patriotic, but not uncritically so. not naively so. And then you have others who find a problem with the very notion of patriotism. And I think that's always been an ongoing and consistent tension. So what she's doing is she's basically pointing out that there's two different sides to it, right? Mm-hmm. There's people that think that, they are actually patriotic, like black people that are patriotic. And then there's other black people that are like, well, the idea of being patriotic, black, white, Mexican, no matter what you are, you shouldn't be a patriot because America's a terrible country.
I don't even say it's that. It's probably more so because of the history of being, the Constitution was ratified, but in that Constitution, blacks were, 3/5 of a person and such. So it's like there's that tension in the past where you weren't really treated as a proper person. So maybe, they just see it as, okay, they didn't respect me as a person, so I won't represent that country as a person of that country.
Okay. But as a person of the country, it's like you are representing it whether you want to or not. You can't necessarily choose. And I understand I definitely understand exactly what you're saying, though. Fact that
kind of relates directly to Africa too. I mean, whether or not, you can't choose the continent. That it is still where like your blood derives from, in a sense. And like in America, kind of made it like impossible to trace that, which I can understand why people still want to hold on to like that ability to do so. Yeah, it was taken.
Yeah, I can see them wanting to hold on to it, but at the same time, I don't think your bloodline necessarily should be used in like the title of your race. I guess
True.
Like I'm black. I have nothing to do with Africa whatsoever. Yeah. Right. I feel like I'm probably 15 to 20 generations removed from Africa. So
15.
That's a lot.
If you think like 50 years per generation, okay, 500 years might be a lot. So maybe like 10 generations removed from Africa, if I had to guess.
I feel like black people only exist in America. Like in other countries, it's like you have African people, like they either be African or Jamaican. They be like from a specific area, and you could tell like they from there. But in America, you as a black person in America, you don't know where you come from. You just
right. We could all be from several different places.
You know what I'm saying? That was the whole idea. Well, I mean, calling a black person an African American is like it gives them that sense of like origin, like this is where you came from, kind of. Yeah. Even though
you don't know where.
Right.
Yeah. I get that. My only argument, I guess, against it would be, I think, unless like you're a person that's maybe one or two generations removed, I think a lot of black people in America kind of drop that moniker, only because, like, let's say you meet a white person whose like family lineage probably dates back to like as long as, if not less than like how long your family's been here as let's say a black person, and you ask them like, how do you identify? They'll probably just say like I'm a white American. And it's like, but if you ask them like, well, where's your lineage? They'll be like, well, I'm like a little bit Irish, a little bit German. It's like the same rules would apply. It's like they have lineage that dates back to Europe, but because, they were born in America, everyone they know in their family that's alive was born in America. They don't have any shame just taking place in the American experience and being like, well, I'm an American now. My lineage starts here. All my knowledge, everything that sculpted me and my family's values was in America. I am an American. I think black people can actually I think we should be able to have that same pride and being like, well, yeah, I know where my ancestors came from, but I'm a black American. All our values were sculpted here in America. I only speak English. It's like, I know where my ancestors came from, but at this point in our history, like all the values and stuff that I like reach from and know about was here. And I think there's pride in knowing that, like, not only are you a citizen of like, this is going to sound really patriotic, of like, one of the greatest nations that have ever like been made, but, your family contributed to it. I think there is some pride in that.
Yeah, there's only one thing wrong with what you said. It is the greatest nation ever.
Hey, there we go.
Oh, man. Put down on that page.
Go that.
Yeah, so this other guy, he says, his name's Watson. He says, I stand for the national anthem, always have. Black people have willingly fought and died for this. Every day when I drive to one of my businesses, I drive through plantations. And honestly, I know I make my ancestors proud. So he's basically like acknowledging the fact that, there is a history that is painful. Mm-hmm. There's a history that's a bit of an issue. But at the same time, he's still proud of the country itself because it's come a long way.
Yeah,
that's true.
That's true.
It is very not the same machine that it was 400 years ago.
That's changed dramatically.
Yeah, things have changed. And so what do we think, like, critically? Like, are we would everyone here say that they're patriotic, or would people got like problems?
I love my country.
Yeah,
I love it too.
America.
I definitely love America. I love being here. I think, personally, out of all the countries or places you could be born in, I mean, America is going to definitely be one of the best you can get a good start in.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think people get caught up on the checkered past of the United States. But that's like admitting the idea that like every country probably has a checkered past. There's people living in countries that they're native to that like probably face some level of like discrimination or like, really bad things, or it wasn't a perfect country. But you got to focus on where we are now. And I think in terms of like where a nation could go, I think all things considered, we're on a pretty good track. And I think we live with a lot more privileges that we would get in any other country.
We're like the Walmart of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, literally.
Like
No,
you
that's
might be able to
China.
get
That's
some
China for
khakis
sure.
at the Subway.
Yeah, man.
I guess it depends on what you mean by Walmart. Yeah.
Like just ultimate convenience, and like you're not sure if you want to be there, but like
Ultimate
you,
opportunities.
You do.
Can we be like the Whole Foods of the world?
I like that.
Well,
It's a
Sam's
little-
Club. Walmart's
so-
like
I
got a
don't
little
think
bit
we're
of
that
everything,
good.
though,
I'm
'cause,
sorry.
like Whole Foods is like, that's just like an inherent good.
Yeah.
America is like, you're a
That's
little
like Europe.
murky, but there's like a lot of good.
Europe is
There
the
is a
Whole Foods.
little bit of bad, but overall it's like we give you the most of everything, and I think I don't know. I think
Walmart.
I kind of like that.
I actually like Sam's Club more.
Okay.
I think Sam's you get the most for your
Yeah,
buck
you
too,
get a
the
big
bulk.
bang
and
for
you
your
have to
buck.
have a membership.
I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Hey, you need to have a membership. Yeah, we can't stress that enough. You need a membership, guys. Come on.
You gotta show it at the door
Show
every
it at the
time. If you want to get 1,000 hot dogs.
All right, let's see this other video by Claude Anderson. He's a doctor who's speaking on the topic of patriotism and why he believes that we should be patriotic.
Oh, this is inspiring. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. Speaking of Sam's Club, though, I would say like Dubai probably is like getting there to being the Sam's Club because you get a discount on gas out there.
That's true. That's a good point.
Well said.
Zing.
Yeah.
The only people came to this country that were enslaved. Nobody else came here and enslaved but you. You're the only people that are denied the right to vote. You're the only people that were classified as 3/5 of a human being. You're the only people that were classified as special property. You're the only people that the entire Constitution was framed on. You're the only people that host an entire civil war was fought over you. And more importantly, you are the only and the most patriotic people in America. Nobody in this country, I hear all the people on these Rush Limbaugh types and the Hannitys and the O'Reillys always talking about black folk for this and black folk for that, about patriotism. Nobody in this country is more patriotic than you are. You tell them this, that Dr. Anderson told you this. You are the only people in this country. No Asian, no Arab, no Hispanic, no American Indians, anyone else. You're the only people that have fought in every war this country's ever been in.
Yeah, so basically, I think, the idea that so much was sacrificed for us to have this position in America, like, obviously we came here by force, right? But we've been through a lot as a people, and a lot has been sacrificed. So at that point, why not accept the country and be patriotic within it, I guess? Like, if your people had to suffer so much for you to get to the point where we actually do have freedoms now, then the value of actually being an American holds way more weight than it used to, and it makes no sense to really take it for granted, I guess.
I agree.
Yeah.
Steve, let me ask you: do you think we should have more smoke for Africans?
More smoke?
Yeah, because let's be honest, they're the ones that sold us here to begin with.
I mean, hey, that's true. It's
they
true
bargained you off.
They
Remember
did
that.
sell us, but at the same time, it's like
That's such a funny fucking take on
I'm just thinking
on
about
colonial,
if you get a raw deal at a car sale at like a car lot, do you
blame
like
the dealer.
Yeah, you blame the
You
dealer.
don't blame the buyer, dude.
Yeah, don't blame the buyer.
And if you're the car, you're just getting ridden.
Yeah, you're over here like, he sold you off to this, this junkie. Now he's like, you got trash all in you and stuff. It's like, wait a second. Did they check this guy's credit? Like, they didn't do any of that. They just sold you.
that's true. I mean, but I guess they were just trying to make a quick buck or something by selling their people. I don't know.
I don't know, man. I just like, maybe we should, I
That's
don't know
a
if we've
really
ever,
good
like, as a
point.
culture, we ever, like, entertained that deal of, like, just going back to Africa and being like, what the fuck?
Guys, what the fuck?
Yeah,
Yeah,
what the hell, man?
yeah, no, I
Damn.
yeah, I'm not even
I was
sure.
like, got his mind blown a little bit like,
He's like, whoa.
You know what's an interesting fact? Actually, so like slavery in America was really bad, but did you know that today there are more slaves than there ever were in all of history?
real? Wait, are you talking about like in regions like Liberia and stuff.
Yeah, like other countries have more slaves
Where?
than ever.
Oh
Where
wow.
Where at?
I never even thought about that, but I'm not
I'm
surprised.
sorry. There's active slavery in other countries right now.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's so much slavery.
Literally.
wow.
India
said there's
has
so
like
much.
Oh,
India has like
India.
5 million slaves.
Yeah, no, that's right. I forgot.
Their
about that.
entire
Yeah, the Middle East,
caste
India,
system is-
parts of Africa.
I
like
think
their
too. Yeah, like
economy.
I think like even in like Eastern Africa, like the Sudanese region and stuff, they have like I think they have genuine slavery, but even like the ones that don't have like straight up just
Indentured
like going that
servitude or
like
whatever.
diamond mine and get to work. They have like a lot of indentured servitude
Okay.
type things because they still have like very archaic class systems based off like skin tone.
So it's damn near ownership.
Yeah, like a lot of these people are like basically into forced servitude, and they're like actively looked down on or seen as like lower class. Like literally, those would be people that you would like go there with money, and
Why don't
they'd
you
be
go
like,
fix this,
you
Jeff
know, you go on a
Bezos?
tour, and it's like, and those there are the lowborns. You know, those are the ones like digging our
Yeah.
holes and stuff.
Yeah, like in India, they have a whole class of people called the untouchables.
That sounds like a movie.
Sounds like a movie.
Yeah.
That's a movie.
It is
That's
a movie.
a
It is a
movie.
movie, literally. But it also there's like
Alright.
you know the caste system.
Yeah.
There's 5 levels of the caste. There's the untouchables, and the untouchables are basically like based on Hinduism. They say that the people that are in the untouchable class, they had bad karma from another life,
Right.
and that's why they
They
were
had too much
born.
pleasure.
That's why they were born dark and untouchable.
Dark and
And-
untouchable.
Yeah, and because they're untouchables, basically, the way that you have to treat them is like you have to treat them bad, or else they won't get rid of their bad karma, and then they'll live another.
You
shitty
gotta
life.
help them reincarnate
Exactly.
properly.
You gotta help them reincarnate.
Treat them like shit. Tell them to wipe your butt,
Yeah.
and ask them if they can feed you by hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't care what any female that loves astrology says. I feel like that is the ultimate form of gaslighting.
Yeah.
This gaslighting group of people, like, you actually deserve to be treated badly
Yeah,
and be
it's-
slaves.
Yeah.
You know what? You wanted this.
Yeah.
You said
Yeah.
you wanted
No,
this.
this is karmic justice. Like, this is God's will. And it's
Yeah.
like, now
Hey, I
get
was
out of there. Go over there and do some work.
Like, hey, I was poor in my last life, dude. You shouldn't have been so rich and successful and
Hey,
stuff in
man.
your last
You know,
life.
you know
I
how
don't
it
make the
works.
rules. I don't make the rules. That's insane.
But yeah, okay, so now we have a little bit more of a controversial take. You know,
Yeah,
it's from the black community's most beloved political figure,
Yes.
Candace
I
Owens.
love
Hey.
Candace Owens.
Yeah, she spits hot fire.
I like calling her Candy Owens, yes, sir.
So funny.
Candy.
Looking for is equality. We're not looking for equality, right? We had equality. We got bored with equality. Now we want something more. We want to be treated differently. We want special privileges. We want black privilege. We're accusing people of wanting white privilege. We want special privileges. We want to be able to fire at police officers, to assault them, and to make it home, and to tell police officers, maybe try later. Maybe later I want to be arrested. What we want is to have absolutely zero personal responsibility.
Yes.
We want to be able to point to the white boogeyman for all of our problems and all of the circumstances that we are in. I'm willing to admit that. I'm willing to admit that is the natural trend that Black Lives Matter has gone into. It's not about unarmed black men anymore. It's about armed black men being protected now. What?
Thanks, Candy.
So I know that Candy's voice is a little bit grating, and sometimes the way she speaks makes it sort of easy to be angry at her. But at the same time,
Really
like
her voice.
as
She's got a nice voice.
I was like, well, wait a
well, it's
second.
more like her tone. It's more like her tone. But basically, like, do you think that basically, like, with everything that's been said about patriotism, wouldn't you say, well, because this is what my personal belief.
Yeah.
I do personally believe that there's a lot of like black people in America who sort of take for granted the idea of being American, and they want a lot more than what is technically, I guess, deserved.
Yeah. I would say I would have the same take on this I have for like any type of movement. Usually it's like everything usually starts with good intentions, and I think as time goes on, you're always going to have like the rational idea behind it be taken over by extremists, whether they go one way or another, because those voices are always going to usually be the loudest. And so
very true.
like in America, like you have a lot of black people that want same thing you can say with even feminism, but in America you had a lot of black people that wanted equality, and like there was a push to like, you know, get these things, access these privileges, get these opportunities. You had another class of people that spoke up louder that basically wanted to see how far you can kind of push the bar, you know? So it's like, it went from, you know, we want to be treated right to, you know, we want to be able to like, you know, get away with anything sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
So that's why you know, and I'm not going to be the person that pretends I'm blind to like instances where you'll be on TV and, you know, you have you have like individuals in the black community that either seem like they just want to be able to get away with doing like, bad things.
Like looting.
Yeah, like crimes and stuff like that. Or the people who just are, more or less not driven to like earn things and just want it to be given to them.
Which is a very childish concept.
Yeah.
Intuitively, so.
100%. So I'm not blind to that concept at all, but I think I want to believe that to some extent it is like the majority of people in the community don't want that. It's just that those are the people that are going to be the most highlighted oftentimes because they're the spectacle. Those are the things that like gather people's attention to listen. And I'd like to say, when I try to apply it to other groups, use the same thing with feminism, where it's not about equality now. It's about, we want more privileges than you. Other movement. I can't think off the top of my head, but there's other ones.
Yeah, like rather than like, because in my opinion, and actually I want to know what you guys think about this. I feel like equality has effectively been achieved in America for the most part, for black people especially. I mean, other minorities maybe not, or maybe so. I'm not in a position to speak for them.
We're a little north.
Like past equality?
No, like geographically.
North America, Steve.
I think like in America, like if you go down like below like our state line,
okay,
probably a little different.
Right. Oh, you mean like in the north of the country?
Yeah.
Oh,
like
okay.
We're past the Mason-Dixie.
South.
Yeah, I would say that equality up in let's say equality in the northern states of America is pretty good, right?
I agree.
But I think that there is a push for things that go sort of beyond equality. More like payback. I think that in the black community, there's more like black people want like sort of like not like reparations, but like not reparations in the form of money, but reparations in the form of like now we got to hurt the white man.
Yeah, I think we want like certain social benefits a lot of times that go beyond the idea of fairness. It's just like it literally is like you said, just kind of like payback. Well, y'all did this for years, so now we get to do this.
Right, and it's just like eye for an eye.
Yeah, it's kind of like how and this is more of a social thing, but it's like, as a black person, you could probably get away with being like openly racist without any real like drawbacks because, like if you're a comedian, you can like pretty much talk about any race. You don't got to walk on eggshells. You can just be straight out with it because at the end of the day, you're a black guy in America. It's like, what, you got to tell me not to be racist?
Right.
Like it's that attitude. I think, that's one of the privileges you kind of get to kind of get away with. And then, there's also this, this kind of like invisible air of, because of what we've been through, there's always the expectation of we should be able to kind of be allowed to get away with certain things. Like that's why even if you have like riots and stuff in the community, you'll have an outreach of like people that will say like, oh, well, they're just doing like this, like these riots and these stuff because they've been disenfranchised and this is the only way for them to like outcry their issues. You kind of get that leniency.
Yeah, like the criminal becomes the victim.
Exactly.
And although the criminal may have been victimized by the society or by different things that actually affected them in their upbringing, it's just interesting to see like somebody go from being to see basically people that are like actual criminals in some situations where it's like, okay, well, they deserve to commit those crimes because you guys didn't treat them very well. It's like I feel like in any situation, it's not necessarily right for people to commit crimes.
Yeah, I agree.
Sure.
I think at the end of the day, it's like there has to be a baseline, of things like, okay, listen, like there's gonna be a lot of cultural context to any community that like you can't govern with rules. It's just like this is how society is gonna scope around the landscape. So those things I don't think can be corrected, but you just gotta like stand on like hard line enforcement, like hard line rules. Like, listen, I don't care who you are, no one can get away with this. Like you can't do that. And I think in terms of like the laws and how they're set up, like, despite what the cultural context may be, like, you should still stand on that, or else you'll just devolve into anarchy.
Right.
So we gotta like. I think it's fair to believe that like, listen, no one should be allowed to get away with crime. I don't care who you are.
Like no matter what race you are, no matter what background you have, it's like if you commit crimes, you're committing a crime.
I feel like it's a more childish concept though. Like a lot of kids probably these days, or if you like look at the average age of these Black Lives Matter protesters, they're probably just kids or young activists that are like very vocal.
Yeah, a lot of them are white people from California. Who would have guessed?
Yeah, George Soros.
A lot of Antifas.
Yeah, so it's like, I guess that you could conflate all of black people to Black Lives Matter, but it's not really like a one-on-one comparison because you have a very small amount of vocal children that are, being taken for their little word, but children are children at the end of the day.
Well, I feel like all of us know that Black Lives Matter, at least to an extent, was a scam. But wouldn't you say that on average, most black people think Black Lives Matter is a good thing?
The phrase, yeah.
No,
Those
I mean
words
like the
have
actual.
power.
I mean like the organization, the protest, all of it.
People
I feel
don't
like,
care about the organization.
I don't
I don't even
I
think
don't
the
know anybody
organization
that
is
cares
really
about the
tangibly
organization.
real.
It doesn't even. It's so non-existent.
I
It's
think
like
Black
funny.
Lives Matter as a virtue signal is something that people get behind. Just
yeah, it's
because
a powerful.
The idea.
Yeah, like
the idea.
It's one of those. It's like a very easy scapegoat. I
Just a
think it's like
concept.
it's just a concept that's like on paper. It's like Black Lives Matter, and people can like apply that, whether it's just like as a neutral term to kind of get people engaged, or it can almost be a scapegoat sometimes, But in terms of an organization, I mean, it was actually like just a scam.
Yeah.
Like that a bunch of like that actually like these black women who like owned it set up so they could monopolize off the death of black men and not actually give any money back to the men that were actually the people that were actually affected.
Well, the reason I bring it up is basically like with Black Lives Matter, and I guess the organization isn't necessarily what matters, but the idea of it is like we all were alive and we remember the Black Lives Matter, all lives matter.
Yeah.
Like when it became like that
Blue
argument
lives
where it was
matter,
like,
actually.
when it was like Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, and all lives matter. It was just nonstop all over the TV, and it's like if you were black and you didn't agree with Black Lives Matter, if you were black and you said all lives matter, then now you're like a coon, you're an Uncle Tom.
Yeah.
Everything is like, okay, well,
If people were screaming equality, it seems like these conversations and like antagonistic points of view became louder.
Yeah.
Constantly, like as
the funny
someone
part
would
about
just
people,
whisper
though.
equality. Yeah, it's just, as the main point gets whispered, someone will be like,
Yeah. Like, oh,
Nah.
you're not saying what I just repeated. It's like, oh, you're a terrible person.
yeah, my slogan's better than yours.
yeah.
That's just stupid.
My problem with Black Lives Matter, I'll just be like completely candid with it, because I didn't even start out inherently like being a skeptic, like one of those guys like, oh, Black Lives Matter. Like, I'm not that guy. But what I will say this, like, I will say this, because like I think something that could have been not like an actual good thing or like a turning point for how we're represented, I think just fell into that hole that it always does, where it just kind of became like a misrepresentation of the group that it was supposed to represent. Because Black Lives Matter, if the concept truly is like we're here to defend black lives in all manners and forms so that black people aren't just killed or accosted for no reason, but we only focus on like when specifically white cops kill black people. But it's like, if you really cared about black lives, there would be a huge focus on like how we interact with each other in our own communities in the inner city, because most black deaths are being perpetrated by other black people, and a lot of it is through gang violence and criminal activity. So it's like there's never really an outcry for that. If there's like a black man that's killed on the news by a white cop, that's gonna be like circulating the news system for like months on end, and that's just like one occurrence. But like literally there would be an entire shootout that happens on some street in Inglewood, and then they will just in like the span of a minute like point down the number of people black people that got killed, and then just pass that off and no one would talk about it again.
Right.
I'm like, if we really cared about black lives, people black being alive, we would literally address those at the first and like foremost, but we don't do that. And that makes me think that this is like some type of this isn't really like a movement to really care about black people's lives. It seems like it was just more focused on trying to monopolize or monetize off of the deaths of black guys who were killed by cops, because you can get money from that.
Yeah,
Well,
sensational.
think about it this way, right? So, as an average black man, most of us, we're just average black people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our concerns are very, very different on a day-to-day basis. We don't really care. Like, if we see an instance like that happens in the news, right? Somebody gets shot even by a white person. It's like, what do we do personally? We think about the situation. We say, okay, maybe there's some sort of rational reason. Maybe the person did overreact, or whatever the scenario was. It doesn't really affect us to really move us in that sense.
Yeah.
I mean, we
so-
try to paint context.
No, and I agree.
Right.
It's like maybe
Like
we're not
we-
as. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No,
go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say I agree. Like maybe we're not as moved in that sense, but I guess my issue is like, don't be a hypocrite. Like if you genuinely don't care in all contexts, like the saying is supposed to imply, then just be indifferent to it. But don't sit here and pretend like you really care about black lives, but only when a white person kills a black person.
Well, exactly.
Don't just do it
Because if
you don't
it's-
care. That's what it really is, or else you would
Because
be
if it's
upset
the
every time. it
other
happens.
way, because if it's the other way, it's like more so the norm.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really an outlier, but it's not really something that's
So black people killing black people is the norm, and then if a white person kills a black person, it's not the norm. So it's like sensational, it's newsworthy, it's something that shows up. Does that kind of I mean
simplistically, yes.
that makes sense, but at the same time, it's like I agree completely with what Zoe is saying, where it's like I think that it makes honestly. Like, and this is my candid take here. Like, I think it makes so much more sense to be a patriot than it is to be proud of black culture.
I elaborate on that because I'm like I get where you're going, but leaving it like there is so controversial.
Okay,
yeah. Like, I think you got some more sentences in there.
Please tell us more.
Okay, so basically, what I'm saying is like obviously there's nothing wrong with being black, but the black culture itself is basically like toxic. It's like it's got a high level of toxicity. Like obviously there's good parts of black culture. Like if you think about like black families when they actually stick together, it's a really powerful thing. If you think about like black people in media, are really powerful figures. But then when you look at like people like down on the street level, like down on the ground level of being black in America, it's like, okay, well, what do we promote? What do we push? What do we encourage? It's like, our music is basically very vulgar, violent, sexual. We've done episodes about it.
Praises financial stability a lot.
Some of it. A portion of it.
I wouldn't use the term financial stability. I would use the term like
it
glorifies materialism.
Yeah. That's the harsh.
Like, sure. Materialism. We're very materialistic, and this is like these are things that affect us generationally.
Are Americans not materialistic like inherently though?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that just being American makes you a materialist. No.
Yeah. I think
No.
what Steve is.
I think our culture is very materialistic. However,
well, no, because it depends on how you.
It
depends on how you look at the culture, because like half the country is Christian, and like just being Christian doesn't make you not a materialist. But I think that there's people that have like ideals beyond just buying things. Yeah. But then it's like when you water down the black culture with things like let's be materialist, let's be addicted to sex, let's do a bunch of drugs, let's have fun, let's get back at the white man, let's hate cops, let's hate each other. These are all like core themes of like black media.
But
I feel
like
what were we raised on? I mean,
I feel like that, like, okay, so you could say that black media, black culture is like it's doing worse for the community than it is helping the community. But I feel like it's going in the direction it's going because black people aren't involved in it enough, in the sense of they own, its distribution. Yeah. Like, it's like the record labels aren't owned by black people. They owned by people other than. So they gonna decide what gets pushed. They gonna decide what
glorified.
Exactly, get glorified.
I
so
agree.
It's like it's deeper than that.
And that's supply and demand in the essence.
I mean, it is deeper, but at the same time, I'll let you go in seconds though. It is deeper, but just because there's a white man making the decision on who gets to listen or what gets listened to, there's an army of black people fighting to make that garbage that people want to
there's a market for everything.
Yeah. Like, they could be underground rappers. I mean,
be a country singer.
Like Sexy Red is blowing up right now. Why?
I mean, but my thing is, you can't really
the market
judge.
Is the market.
Someone decided.
You can't really
a
judge.
Group decided.
You can't really judge Sexy Red though. You can't really judge Sexy Red for doing what everybody want to do, which is like live the
be
American
famous?
dream. No.
Make money.
No. I mean, yeah, make money.
Make
but
music, make money.
Yeah,
be
all
powerful.
of that. But live a better life at the end of the day and have
She's
what
doing it for the
is
money.
the American dream. You feel
Exactly.
me? Like, you can't blame her for that. She just doing what's, making her money. I feel like if the message was overall positive, then people would do more positive stuff, to make money. I
So
feel
it's
like
mostly
that's
selfishness. It's mostly selfishness.
If only that's
not
sold.
even really selfishness though, because it's like at the end of the day, we all do things because we want a better life, and it's
If
like,
only that's sold,
you know what I'm saying?
If only.
Well,
Truly.
You throwing me off, Leezy.
I'm sorry, bro. Go ahead.
It's just like, at the end of the day, we all do things to progress and have a better life. And so she may have chose that and it's negative, but it's like that's what's paying her. That's what's helping her. You know what I'm saying? It's like there is no alternative in a way.
I would say, addressing what you said earlier about which I would agree with. Like, we don't control any of the industries that we have a large influence on.
Right.
The music industry, like I said, we don't control any of the distribution of the music or who gets put on. Even in sports, it's like, black people overwhelmingly populate the NBA, but we don't own anything in it. And I think a lot of that is like one of the biggest problems is, and this is a thing from Kevin Samuels when he was alive. He had said, like, black people have no control over our ethnic image. And I think one of the problems is that America in general is very individualistic, and we adapt that very heavily in our culture, where it's all about me getting my money and me first, but it neglects the ethnic image that we push out to the world, which is why I think we get attributed with so many negative stereotypes, because as a culture, we're very much like we're so jazzed up to try to like push this idea of like black love and how proud we are of our culture that we neglect any sense of wanting to filter out the garbage. So we just take everything and push it. And people are very like, a culture every group is attracted to like sensational things. So we take all those like sensational things that like are really like, in your face, like, a sexy red, the sexualization, the money culture, the music, despite how degenerate some of it may get, we just take it all in stride and push it without ever like considering like, what does this say about our community now that, we put this at the forefront of what it means to be a black person. And I think that as black people, that's the one thing I wish we were more cognizant of, is like, we can have all these things in our culture, but if we want to be represented positively, we have to learn like how to filter out the stuff that doesn't need to represent us. Like, like white people have, there was like a whole opioid epidemic, but even they know that this is something we don't want the world to see us as, and we're going to address it in a manner as though this is a problem. And we should do that as a culture too, to be like, okay, we recognize this degeneracy in our culture and we're going to address it as a problem, but we don't do that. We just say like, well, that's what it is to be black. So, hey, let everyone have their fun. And then we end up being, stereotyped and have a problem with it.
It's kind of like, what Roosevelt was just saying. Like, if you think about it, she's just getting her bag. I know you didn't say that specifically, but like, she's just making money. She's living her dream. She's trying to chase the American dream. But it's like, when you take it away from the individual, you have to understand like how it's affecting the entire group. And if it's affecting the entire group, then that's really what the problem is. Like the fact that like you were saying, the fact that we don't filter out those things that negatively impact the entire thing. It's like, say you have like a ship that's running in the sea. It's like, in the ocean. And, on the bottom of the ship, there's a whole bunch of, holes in it and water's starting to leak in. But you're like, well, shit, I got a lifeboat hidden in the back. So you don't even bother talking about it. You don't bother telling anybody that you noticed all these holes in the ship. You're just like, well, I got my lifeboat already. I don't got to worry about it.
Yeah, it's like not changing your oil. It's like eventually all that garbage is going to pile up and the car's going to break down.
Yeah,
you got to filter the crap out every now and then to make sure the car stays running. And I think
like I mentioned,
if we don't do that, we're gonna crash.
Yeah, like I mentioned last week, it was about the parenting episode. Essentially, black people don't create enough barriers. Like I said last week, if you remember that conversation, there's not enough barriers.
So like entering the culture?
There's not enough barriers to what we put on everything, like what we teach our children, what we view as acceptable, not acceptable, what we outwardly show towards people. There's not enough barriers. We just allow pretty much, like you said, everything.
Right.
Everyone really has how things are perceived.
Everyone has exposure to anything that is considered to be black culture. Yeah. Like if you're a kid, you should be consuming all of the culture, whatever our culture is. You get all of it. Yeah. Including all the violence, all the drugs, and all the things that are just negative, and that I think are honestly just like a complete detriment to our society. But at the same time, I love the fact that I'm black, and I think being black is a very, it's a very powerful thing, for lack of a better way to put it. Yeah. I think being a minority in general is a very powerful thing, where it's like, you're outside of the majority.
The underdog.
Yeah, you're like like a permanent underdog.
It's like it's beauty in the struggle.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I feel like although things may have progressed and times are better, I feel like black people in America and going through the system and everything, I feel like the damage was done to the point where now now it's perpetual. Like I was telling you, Steve, like I feel like it's perpetual now, and the only way for things to really change is if black people start doing stuff for black people, but it's like the system works. It's like the racism ain't got to be like as belligerent and in your face no more, because the system has done what it was designed to do, and it works. It's proven that it works, and now we just in this perpetual
good point.
like cycle of destruction, like the black community, because what was planned was laid out, and then it happened, and it worked, and it's still working today. It's not as belligerent because it don't have to be.
So it's like you're basically saying like systemic racism. You know?
Well said.
Yeah. Basically.
Yeah, the byproducts of those are still lingering in our culture.
I agree with that.
In our culture.
I agree with that, but it really just takes like people stepping out of that framework, people stepping out of that cycle and choosing to change it. It's never going to get fixed any other way, especially because the momentum's already built up to the point where people are being pushed into the cycle. They're not actively choosing to go into the cycle like
well,
what
you're born
Roosevelt's
in it.
saying.
So
part of that is ownership
like
too,
Bane.
as I think Roosevelt mentioned earlier, just actually having ownership to the distribution and image that you may hold as a culture.
Yeah.
Like the ability to get to that actual possession of image.
Yeah, how do you get out of the cycle when you're born in it? Just like Bane from Batman.
If you're born in the
I
cycle,
was born in the darkness.
Yeah, if you're born, but
you know who got out the darkness though?
That's another thing, and I feel like we should probably close out soon. But that's
Batman got out of it.
That's something me and Leezy actually talk about very
Bane
often.
was a quitter.
Me and Leezy actually talk about this a lot in terms of people being born into the cycle and being unable to escape it. It's like it's not as easy as I once thought it might have been, because obviously I never went through this. You know, I was born privileged, but for people that are born in like an inner city and they're like surrounded by like drug and gang culture and whatever bad negative things that happen in that community, I don't think that it's like I feel like it's almost glorified. The idea that it's hard to escape the hood is almost glorified to the point that people don't even try.
Yeah,
it's kind of how I feel.
Well, I think
I wouldn't know that. But
I think this because you're talking about how do we escape the system, and my thing is people need to change their idea of how to attack it, because I think everyone thinks I'm gonna like get us out in one generation, and it's if this is a system that's been built on for generations, that's like trying to cross a canyon with a jump. It's like you're probably not gonna make it out alone. But like if you start building a bridge and use one piece by piece over time, you're gonna have a complete bridge, and then everyone after you is gonna be able to cross that canyon with ease.
Do you think that being patriotic is a part of building that bridge?
I think so. I think so. Yeah. I think if you're going to live in America, the best way to actually build that bridge is to use the pieces you have. So
American citizenship.
You live in the system. Embrace it and make it work for you. You don't have to work for it. That's how people have always risen up. It's you start working with what you have, and eventually you will own the system. So it's like I say, I think patriotism definitely ties into that.
Yeah, just adapt to your environment.
And I think that's why it's like when you were saying I love like being black, black culture. Like I do. I genuinely love being black, and that's why I want to treat it with care. I don't want like my culture to be associated with single motherhoods. I don't want it to be associated with incarceration rates. I want to build a foundation that is unshakable so we can get across that fucking canyon.
Right.
I do feel like if black people could stand up and proudly consider themselves Americans, proud Americans, that'd be enough. I wouldn't say enough of a foundation, but that'd at least be a start to start building towards something, greater than, what we have today, basically. If that makes sense.
True.
All right. I feel like that's a good point to close on, unless anyone has some more thoughts. All right. So thanks for watching, everybody. This has been a really thoughtful and good discussion. If you want to see more of our conversations, if you want to see any clips, make sure you check us out on social media at The Cold Popcast. We're also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts at Cold Popcast. If you want to see us, any of our exclusive content, we're on Patreon. $5 a month gets you exclusive content, such as My Black Friends podcast, more than 80 episodes of a hilarious podcast. Definitely check it out. It's where we started podcasting. Once again, thanks for watching, and make sure you leave a comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. We got to pop out of here.
All right. Peace.